好，今天重新开始。第一章节就是阿加莎系列的第一章节，就这个 Ferris 女士的怎么死的。好，开始慢慢，我们先慢读，确实真的慢了很多了，速度慢 ，slow quick.
The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Mrs. Ferrers died on the night of the 16th of September.
好，我们第一个主人公出现了 ，Miss Ferrers 就是死者。我们讲过，因为这个死者关系实在太多了，而且交代了。
Mrs. Ferrers died on the night of the 16th of September, a Thursday. I was sent for at 8 o'clock on the Friday morning, and a few minutes after 9 I reached home again. "Is that you, James?" my sister Caroline called.
主角出现了 ，James， 主角，并且把他的妹妹也带上了。主角出现了，然后主角的妹妹也出现了。这个主角作为一个外科医生，他是星期四死的，他星期五8早上8点。早上8、9点，然后他才到家了。然后主角的妹妹出现了，主角妹妹肯定要八卦一下，干了什么呀？然后死者死的这些情况。
I walked into the dining room. "You've had an early call?" "Yes," I said. "King's Paddock, Mrs. Ferrers."
他有一个很早之前，他有一个电话打过来。King's Paddock, Mrs. Ferrers 是死者吗？
"I know. Annie told me."
安妮是谁？他的仆人，就是他的一个仆人，可能把这件事情告诉了，然后他愿意再重复一遍。
Annie is our maid. "Well?" my sister demanded. "A sad business. She must have died in her sleep." "I know," said my sister again. "I didn't know myself until I got there. If Annie knows, it was the milkman who told me. The Ferrers cook told him. What did she die of?"
这个女士的厨师告诉他，告诉谁？这是外科医生。怎么死的？
"She died of an overdose of veronal. She's been taking it for sleeplessness. She must have taken too much." "No," said Caroline.
他这个妹妹就是什么？不相信不相信是自杀，应该是过了不要自杀吧，从这里开始，是不是
"She took it on purpose. I told you she poisoned her husband, and ever since she's been haunted by what she did." I told Caroline that her whole idea was nonsense. "Nonsense?" said Caroline. "I'm sure she's left a letter confessing everything." "She didn't leave a letter," I said sharply. "Oh," said Caroline. "So you did inquire about that, did you? There are only 2 houses of any importance in King's Abbot."
在这个家族中，在这个相当于就咱们村落里面，最主要的就是这2个，一个就是 Ferrers 所拥有的一个城堡，
One is King's Paddock.
第一个就是 King's Paddock 国王，然后
left to Mrs. Ferrers by her husband. The other, Fernley Park, is owned by Roger Ackroyd, an extremely successful businessman of nearly 50 years of age. He gives
机制出现了2个 King's Paddock and Park， 就是相当于2个巨头，一个大牛，2头大牛。King's Paddock is Ferrers Park.
generously to village activities though he is said to be extremely mean in personal spending. When he was just 21, Ackroyd married a beautiful widow, Mrs. Peyton.
就把另外一个是艾克约的 married a beautiful widow, Mrs. Patton, who had one child, Roger. 他们几个关系也都出来了。在这里，该有意思了。那个是他的儿子。
Who had one child, Ralph. Sadly, Mrs. Ackroyd was an alcoholic and drank herself to death. Ralph, now 25,
这个死了，这是死的了。其实现在从这里我们来看到一个问题，以这个 Rocky 的阿雅的关系的两个女的都是被他杀，死了。目前我们认为这几个是被他杀死的。真好看呀，是吧？
has been a continual source of trouble to Ackroyd.
然后这个呢是他的儿子，21岁，现在是21岁，正值青年。然后麻烦。
However, we are all very fond of Ralph in King's Abbot.
麻烦但是
After her husband's death, Ackroyd and Mrs. Ferrars were always seen together, and it was thought that at the end of a period of mourning, Mrs. Ferrars would become Mrs. Roger Ackroyd. The Ferrarses only came to live here just over a year ago. Before that, the whole village had confidently expected Ackroyd to marry his housekeeper, Miss Russell.
又出现一个关键。
At the same time, his widowed sister-in-law, Mrs. Cecil Ackroyd, with her daughter, came to stay with Ackroyd, and she certainly disapproved of him marrying his housekeeper. I went on my round, my thoughts returning to Mrs. Ferrars' death. I had last seen her only yesterday, walking with Ralph Peyton. I had been very surprised.
你看死前1周还和这个 Ralph Patton 散步
to see him. He and his stepfather
那么接下来肯定是要找21岁这个 Ralph Patton 谈话，然后要周围谈话，跟 Roger Ackroyd 可以约谈话。
had argued very badly 6 months ago, and he hadn't been seen in King's Abbot since.
哎，可能这个关键时候他提到，6 months ago，6个月前他和他继父吵架，那他和他继父吵架和这件事情有没有关系呢？
I was still thinking of it when I came face to face with Roger Ackroyd himself. "Shepherd," he exclaimed, "this is a terrible business."
哎，这是主角的名字 ，Shepherd James。
"I've got to talk to you. Can you come back with me now?" "No, I've got patients to visit still, and surgery." "Then come for dinner tonight, at 7:30. Damn, here's old Miss Gannett coming. I don't want to have to talk.
Miss Gannett coming，Miss Gannett，Miss Gannett 是谁？哦，就是这个爱教师跟老太太，哎，然后几个出现，
Talk to her. See you tonight, Shepherd. Miss Gannett was full of gossip. Wasn't it sad about poor dear Mrs. Ferrers? People were saying she had been a drug addict. I went home, thoughtful, to find several patients waiting for me to begin surgery. I told Caroline at lunch that I would be dining at Fernley. "Excellent," she said. "You'll hear all about it. By the way, why is Ralph staying at the Three Boars pub?"
老北京他21岁的儿子为什么 stay at Three Balls？ 为什么待在这个地方？这个地方后来其实也提到过。为什么要这个地方？就6个月前跟他吵之后就跑到这个地方来了，是吧？ Last night, he went out to meet.
He arrived yesterday morning, and last night he went out to meet a girl. I don't know who she is. It must have been very hard for Caroline to have to admit that she didn't know. But I can guess.
从这句话来说明他们以为是一个八卦精对，因为具有神探的那一种性质的，就是个包打听那种感觉，就是如果出现了他不了解我不知道的事情，他会感觉很难受。
Continued my sister. His cousin, Flora Ackroyd, is, of course, no relation really to Ralph Peyton. They are...
His cousin, 他的人妹Flora Ackroyd，就是他儿子的订婚，是他订婚的时候，因为订了名字订婚的时候。
are secretly engaged. Ackroyd disapproves, and they have to meet secretly. I began to talk about our new neighbour, which stopped Caroline saying more about her romantic theory. The house next door, the Larches, had...
New number 这一些 new number 就是 Mr. Part
has recently been rented by a stranger. To Caroline's annoyance, she has not been able to find out anything about him, except that his name is Mr. Porret, he is a foreigner, and he is interested in growing vegetable marrows. That is not the sort of information Caroline wants. She wants to know where he comes from, what he does, whether he is married, and so on. "My dear Caroline," I said, "there's no doubt that the man is a retired hairdresser. Look at that moustache of his." I escaped into the garden. I was digging up weeds when a heavy object flew past my ears and fell at my feet. It was a marrow. Over the wall there appeared an egg-shaped head, partly covered with suspiciously black hair, a huge moustache, and a pair of green eyes. It was the mysterious Mr. Porret. "1,000 pardons, monsieur." "For some months now I grow the marrows. This morning I become angry with them. I seize one, I throw him over the wall. Oh, monsieur, I am ashamed. Do not worry, it is not a habit with me. But, monsieur, do you not think that a man may work to reach a peaceful retirement, and then find that after all he wants the old busy days back, and the occupation that he thought he was so glad to leave?" "Yes," I said, thinking how strangely he spoke English. "I know that feeling well. I have always wanted to travel, to see the world. A year ago I inherited some money, enough to allow me to realize a dream, yet I am still here." My little neighbour nodded. "Habits are very hard to break. And, monsieur, my work was the most interesting work there is in the world, the study of human nature." Clearly a retired hairdresser. Who knows the secrets of human nature better than a hairdresser?
谁会比这个理发师更知道这人类 nature 人类本性的一个秘密呢？好，下面我们做题，今天我是瞎做的，所以说正确率不高，然后可以再来看一下。我底的看曾凯文 Mrs. Fires， 基本上他不是基本上他不是自杀的。Who was Robin Farrell's new campaign?人影，这个是不错，前面这个问题我怎么做错了？确实是 take it on purpose， 故意的 purpose on purpose on purpose， 这个第四错，所以说前面的错。对，who was thought to be Mrs. Farrell's new campaign？ 全部被认为是这个小姐的菲尔斯律师的新伙伴，肯定就是他了。他们就是丈夫死了之后的丧期满了之后，他们两个并且记住了一段时间，然后最后但是后来这个离开了。今天就到这里了。